The nation wakes to a chilling silence, a quiet that feels unnatural, as if the very air is holding its breath. Across Brazil, from the bustling avenues of São Paulo to the quiet corners of rural towns, a sense of unease settles in. The streets, usually alive with the sounds of daily life, are subdued. Conversations are hushed, and eyes glance nervously at the headlines. It is a morning unlike any other, marked by a collective uncertainty about what the day will bring. The voice that once echoed through these halls, a voice of courage, defiance, and conviction, is now forcibly quieted. The microphone stands alone, the podium empty, as if waiting for words that may never come. The absence is palpable, a reminder of how quickly freedom of expression can be stifled when power feels threatened. Jair Bolsonaro, the former president, has now spent a week under house arrest. Confined by a Supreme Court order that many believe overreaches its bounds, he is watched day and night, his every move scrutinized. The world watches as a leader, once at the center of national debate, is reduced to a solitary figure behind closed gates. The message is clear: dissent will not be tolerated, even at the highest levels. But this moment is not just about one man. It is a warning to all who dare to challenge the established order. Across the country, people gather in protest, not just for Bolsonaro, but for the right to speak, to question, to demand accountability. Their faces show determination, their voices ring with the conviction that democracy must be defended, even when it is inconvenient for those in power. The establishment seeks to criminalize dissent, to make an example of those who refuse to fall in line. Yet, the spirit of the Brazilian people cannot be broken so easily. The flag is raised higher, chants grow louder, and the call for freedom of speech becomes a rallying cry that unites people from all walks of life. In the face of intimidation, the people's resolve only grows stronger. Bolsonaro's isolation is meant to intimidate not just him, but anyone who might follow in his footsteps. Yet, rather than sowing fear, it has sparked a new sense of unity and purpose among his supporters and critics alike. The image of a leader alone, watched and contained, becomes a symbol, a reminder that the fight for justice and liberty is never truly solitary. This is a test for Brazil, a defining moment that will shape the nation's future. Will we accept the silencing of our leaders, the erosion of our rights, and the normalization of fear? Or will we rise, together, to demand a country where every voice matters and where justice is not reserved for the powerful alone? The answer lies in the courage of those who refuse to be silent. The fight for our nation's soul has only just begun. As the sun rises over Brasilia, so too does the hope that Brazil will choose freedom over fear, unity over division, and courage over silence. The world is watching, and so are we. The president's home is now a gilded cage, its opulence overshadowed by the heavy presence of armed guards and surveillance cameras. What was once a place of power and celebration has been transformed into a fortress, not to protect its occupant, but to keep him contained. The world watches as the walls close in, and the grandeur of the residence becomes a stark reminder of the cost of political dissent. This house, once a symbol of leadership and national pride, now stands as a symbol of tyranny in plain sight. Its windows, once open to the world, are now barred and shadowed, reflecting the darkness that has crept into the heart of the nation. Bolsonaro, once the leader of millions, is now cut off from the world, his every move restricted. The isolation is palpable. He paces the halls alone, his voice silenced by the very system he once commanded. The loneliness of power lost is etched on his face, a stark contrast to the crowds that once cheered his name. Yet, even in this forced solitude, he is not forgotten. Allies and supporters arrive at his doorstep, braving scrutiny and intimidation. Their visits are not just gestures of solidarity, but bold acts of defiance, signaling to the world that the resistance is alive and unbroken. Each embrace, each whispered word, is a reminder that hope persists. His indignation is not defeat, but the righteous anger of a patriot who refuses to be silenced. Behind closed doors, his resolve only hardens. He stands not as a broken man, but as a symbol of unwavering conviction, determined to fight for his beliefs, no matter the cost. The system hoped to isolate him, to make an example of him, but instead, his home has become a beacon for all who oppose authoritarianism. The crowds that gather outside, waving flags and chanting for freedom, prove that his influence endures. The spirit of resistance has found a new rallying point. This is not justice. It's a political spectacle meant to demoralize the conservative movement and send a chilling message to anyone who dares to challenge the status quo. The world sees the spectacle for what it is, a calculated attempt to crush dissent and silence opposition. Yet, the flame of resistance burns brighter than ever. In the darkness, hope flickers in the hearts of those who refuse to surrender. The struggle continues, and the dream of freedom lives on, undimmed by the shadows of tyranny. This is not due process. This is something far more alarming. What we are witnessing is the transformation of the justice system into a weapon wielded not in the pursuit of truth, but in the service of political interests. The very foundation of impartiality is being shaken as the courts abandon their role as neutral arbiters and instead take up the mantle of political actors. It's a judicial crusade, a campaign of political persecution that has ignited outrage across the nation. The streets are filled with voices demanding fairness, transparency, and respect for the rule of law. Yet, these calls are met with silence from those in power, who seem determined to push forward regardless of the consequences. The case against Bolsonaro is built on shaky legal ground, with evidence that is, at best, questionable and, at worst, manufactured to fit a predetermined narrative. Legal experts and observers have raised serious concerns about the lack of transparency and the apparent disregard for established legal procedures. This entire process is driven by a clear political agenda, orchestrated behind closed doors by those who fear dissent and seek to consolidate their own power. The lines between justice and politics have blurred, leaving the public to question the legitimacy of the entire system. In no true democracy would a former president be treated this way for political disagreements. The targeting of political opponents through the courts is a hallmark of authoritarian regimes, not free societies. It sends a chilling message to anyone who dares to challenge the status quo. The Supreme Court has become judge, jury, and executioner, trampling the Constitution it was sworn to uphold. Instead of protecting the rights of all citizens, it now appears to serve the interests of a select few, undermining the very principles of justice and equality. If the rights of a former president can be stripped so easily, with little regard for due process or legal precedent, then no one is truly safe. The erosion of these protections threatens every citizen, regardless of their political beliefs. What hope is there for ordinary citizens if even the most powerful can be brought low by a politicized judiciary? The fear and uncertainty spreading through society are palpable as people wonder who might be targeted next. This is a direct attack on freedom of speech and dissent, a warning to anyone who might think to speak out or challenge the prevailing narrative. The right to express opposing views is being systematically dismantled, replaced by a climate of fear and repression. Silencing Bolsonaro is an act of cowardice, not justice. It is a move designed to intimidate, to suppress, and to control. But history has shown that the truth cannot be silenced forever, and the fight for justice and democracy will continue, no matter the obstacles. The world watches as Brazil's democracy falters under judicial tyranny. While some global institutions applaud, True Democrats look on in horror at the judiciary's unchecked power. Brazil, once a beacon of conservative values, is now a cautionary tale. Human rights groups remain silent, exposing their political bias. Investors see instability. The rule of law appears fragile. The world sees a nation at war with itself, its institutions now the source of chaos. Bolsonaro's imprisonment is the climax of a war against Brazil's core values: God, homeland, family, and liberty. He stood as a shield for traditional families and Christian faith, resisting progressive efforts to undermine them. His persecution signals that these values are under attack. The left seeks to redefine freedom, making it conditional and controlled. By targeting Bolsonaro, the system warns that liberty is now a privilege, not a right. Without true freedom, all other values crumble. The political crisis brings economic disaster. Investor confidence collapses when the rule of law is sacrificed for politics. Bolsonaro's reforms brought growth, but judicial activism now threatens to undo that progress. Legal insecurity drives away capital, raises costs, and hurts the poor most. Every Brazilian pays the price, in jobs, prices, and opportunity. The system's vendetta risks the nation's prosperity for the sake of silencing one man. While the establishment celebrates, the people rise in indignation. Across streets and social media, a genuine movement grows, unfiltered, passionate, and determined. Hashtags trend, videos go viral, and the truth breaks through official propaganda. The system fears this digital uprising, desperate to control the narrative. Persecution has only strengthened Bolsonaro's support, turning sympathizers into activists. The people's will is an unstoppable force. The system stands guilty in their eyes. What was meant to break the conservative movement is forging it stronger. Bolsonaro's ordeal transforms him into a symbol, a martyr for liberty. Every day of injustice grows his stature and the resolve of his supporters. This trial separates true patriots from opportunists, purifying the movement. We must channel our indignation into strategic action, not despair. The injustice is not defeat, but a call to fight smarter and harder. From this fire, we emerge as tempered steel. The time for silence is over. Now is the time for action. Brazilians must stand, speak, and peacefully demand justice and liberty. Pressure Congress, use social media, and strengthen families and communities. This is a spiritual and moral battle as much as a political one. Let faith, honesty, and hard work guide us. The dawn of a new Brazil depends on our courage and unity. For God, for our families, for Brazil, the fight continues. Avante, patriotas!